That's the true feminist romance. Apparently Hazel would move over. She's always here for the drama too. All these kids are. This whole show, everyone's just like, drama, yes, I live. And you know what? Same. Please touch grass. Hey friends, it's Sarah, and today I'm going to be recommending books to the characters of the TV show Never Have I Ever. So I made another video about Never Have I Ever a little while ago, a couple weeks ago, depending on when this comes out, and I still got that brain rot, y'all. I can't get over it. So I thought I would recommend books to the different characters based on either what I think they would like or books that I think fit the same kind of like storyline or the arcs that they go through throughout the series, or even just ones that I think they should read even if they might not enjoy it. You'll see what I mean. There are a lot of characters in this, so I mostly just picked kind of like the main characters from the various seasons. We still have 13 people to recommend books to, so let's get into this. First off, for Mr. Shapiro, I have Mouse by Art Spiegelman. This is an incredible graphic novel about the Holocaust written by the son of a Holocaust survivor, and it is drawn as if all the different ethnicities are different animals. So the Jewish people are mice, hence mouse. The Germans are cats. I think the Polish people are pigs, but it's incredibly well done. It is very moving, and I think Mr. Shapiro would definitely be crying as he talked about it to his class. This would be required reading in his class. He would make everyone read it, and I think he would have a lot to say about the symbolism of using the different animals for the different people in this book. Next, for Dr. Ryan, I think that Turtles All the Way Down by John Green is a book that she would recommend to her clients all the time. So this follows a 16-year-old girl who is going on kind of like a treasure hunt for a cash prize, but really it's about the kind of spiral of OCD and mental health. And I think Dr. Ryan would recommend this to her teenage clients because it is such an authentic voice. Like John Green himself has OCD, so it's very, not maybe accurate to everyone, but it's like a very authentic and gripping way of talking about OCD. Plus, it's got like the younger, like the teenage protagonist, so connect to Dr. Ryan's clients better. And I think, yeah, she would recommend this for her clients who are struggling with OCD to be like, hey, it you, is it not? Next up, for Kamala, I recommend Lessons in Chemistry. This is the ARC version. The actual one is like pink. I'll put a picture up of it, but I have the ARC version of it. So this is a historical fiction set in the 1960s, and it follows Elizabeth Zott, who is a chemist but ends up leaving her lab and being kind of like the host of this cooking show, which she then turns into a like chemistry of cooking show for all the housewives in the 60s. It also has a really lovely romance in this, but I think Kamala would really relate to the part of being like a woman in STEM and not being respected by your colleagues and having to really fight for any sort of recognition. And I think she would also enjoy the love story in here because they truly are equals even in like the 60s, and it's just so beautiful. That's the true feminist romance. Apparently Hazel would move over. Next up, for Trent, I think he would absolutely adore the Bromance book club by Lyssa K. Adams, because it's a bunch of himbos a little bit, just like Trent, but who are very like in touch with their emotions and are trying to like become better at like communicating their emotions. And so they read romance books to try and like be their best selves to their partners. And I think Trent would be like 110% into that. The first book, they read a Scottish romance, and I think Trent would love that too because of him and Eleanor having their first time being in the drama room where he's got like the big cape and the hair and she's in like the corset and everything. So I think he would just really love this series, but especially the first book. It's very Trent. Up next, for Aneesa, this one I kind of like struggled with. I've not really read any books with eating disorders in them, and I feel like she probably doesn't want to read that anyway, so instead I am recommending She Drives Me Crazy by Kelly Quindlen. This is a sapphic teen love story, and it's kind of like enemies to lovers, and it also features sports. So you have a basketball player and a cheerleader who kind of have like an enemies to lovers, fake dating sort of thing going on, and I think Aneesa would just appreciate like the sapphics in sports and the like kind of funny high school shenanigans. She's always here for the drama too. All these kids are. This whole show, everyone's just like, drama, yes, I live. And you know what? Same. Same. So for Des, I am recommending Loveboat Taipei by Abigail Hing. This is one of the ones that I think is like kind of follows a similar storyline to him, a similar arc. You have these kids who are sent to Taipei for a summer. It's supposed to be kind of like an educational like summer program where you're learning about the culture and you're like studying and it's supposed to be good for your grades, but really it's kind of like a party school. All these kids are left mostly unsupervised, and so they're going out on the town, they're all partying and drinking and hooking up. But I think in this, the romance between the two main characters is really built on kind of like a shared cultural identity, the same way that like Des and Devi relate to each other because they don't have to explain the different cultural quirks to each other. They're like, yeah, I grew up like that too. I know what it's like. And then also because they are in this place where everyone's from the same background and are ostensibly there for educational purposes, the parents are like, we don't have to check on them all that much. Like, what kind of trouble they're gonna get up to? They're going to be totally fine. And so the parents kind of let them be free, and then the kids just like run with it. Similar to how like Des and Devi, like the moms are like, oh, you know, it's another Indian family, so like we can kind of let you guys do your stuff, and they get away with like a lot more than if either one of them had been white. So I think that kind of summer romance with the shared cultural background is very similar to like Des's storyline in Devi's life. Next up, I have The Outsiders by S.E. Hinton, and I'm recommending this to Ethan. I think he would not at all get any of the actual morals in this, but I think he would just love the vibes and he would want to be a greaser and he would be like, hell yeah, screw the system, and absolutely not see the horrific violence and gang stuff, but I think he would just really be into this. I don't think he would read the book. I think he would just watch the movie and be like, oh yeah, I'm gonna be young Tom Cruise. Up next, for Nalini, I think she would really like The Stationery Shop by Marjan Kamali. This follows an Iranian couple who meet in a stationery shop kind of in the midst of a upheaval in the political system. They fall for each other and they are going to get married when all of a sudden he vanishes and she's like left being like, oh my god, where is he? And she assumes he's dead and moves on with her life till like 60 years later they kind of reconnect and are like, oh my god, I can't believe you're alive, and also like, where did you go? Why weren't you there for me? I think Nalini would really relate to that like kind of once in a lifetime big love, and then losing that and having to like move on from the grief of that. And I think she would like kind of the end of like being able to like rejoin that person and kind of get some like more closure because like she lost Mohan so tragically, so young, similar to how the main characters in this lost each other so young, and that her whole arc through this is kind of like moving on and being able to like deal with her grief and be able to maybe start to open herself up to the possibility of romance with someone else. So I think she'd really like The Stationery Shop for that. Up next, for Paxton, I have To All the Boys I've Loved Before by Jenny Han. I think he would really relate to Peter Kavinsky in this because Peter is kind of like, you know, he's like the hot jock like Paxton, and he's got this kind of like weird girl who is like confessed her feelings for him. In this book, they end up fake dating, and in Never Have I Ever, they do end up dating. I think Paxton would really relate to Peter being like, suddenly I have feelings for this weird little like nerd girl. That wasn't supposed to happen. I'm supposed to be like cool and like not have the emotions and just kind of be like a fuckboy. But suddenly I have feelings for this nerd girl. What's going on? This was not in the plan. So I think he would really relate to Peter's journey. And to being like propositioned by her in To All the Boys I Loved Before, it's proposition to fake date, and Never Have I Ever, it's proposition to hook up. So I just think the like bewilderment of the confidence in these nerd girls, I think would really resonate with Paxton. For Ben, sweet, sweet Ben, this is a recommendation where I'm like, I'm not sure if he would enjoy it, but I think it's one he needs to read. And that is The Secret Garden by Frances Hodgson Burnett, because this also follows an insufferable child whose parents have died. She is an orphan, but she, you know, is lacking those parental figures in the way that Ben's parents are very absent. She meets another insufferable child and a delightful child, and then together they become delightful children, and they have like the secret garden that they tend to and like become better and happier and healthier kids. by hanging out with a wholesome child and by tending to this garden. So I think Ben would relate to the like parental abandonment, to connecting with another insufferable child, aka Devi. And I think Ben sometimes just needs to go touch grass. You know, I think if he had a little secret garden that he was tending to in amongst all of his studying and stuff, maybe he wouldn't be so tense all the time and so stressed out. So I think he just sometimes needs to touch grass. I mean, in the 4th season, Trent was trying to get him to smoke grass, smoke weed, so there's something there. But Ben, please touch grass. For Fabiola, I'm recommending All Systems Red by Martha Wells. This is like a super tiny little sci-fi book that my friend actually recommended to me. Thank you, Nathaniel. And it's set in the future where there are these kind of like AI robots who act as like guards for different expeditions to protect the humans and stuff when they're going exploring. And then this one follows one of the security units who calls itself Murderbot, who's kind of hacked its brain and is more sentient than it's letting on. And so it's kind of like doing its own thing, living its own life, while still trying to be under the radar. But then they are on a planet and the neighboring mission goes dark, and so Murderbot and the humans it's accompanying have to figure out what's going on, all while it's trying to like figure out who am I and like how do I also not get caught by the humans. So I think Fabiola loves AI, loves robots. I think she'd really dig the Murderbot in this and just the really cool sci-fi world. And it's technically got like a non-binary asexual main character because the Murderbot's got no sexuality and it uses its pronouns. For Eleanor, I think she would absolutely love The Love Curse of Melody McIntyre by Robin Talley. This is a sapphic love story for teens, and it follows Melody McIntyre, who is a stage manager, and every time she's in a relationship and has a breakup, the play just like crumbles around the cast. So the cast and crew get together and they're like, please, dear God, we are putting on Les Mis. You cannot have any romance during this or you will destroy our show, and we can't have that. And so she has sworn off love for the duration of the run of Les Mis because she's like, you know what, being a stage manager is so important to me and like drama is so important to me. Theater, I can't put it at risk. So she agrees to swearing off love for the duration of the play's run. But of course, she starts to fall for one of the actors in the play, and it's a whole big mess where she's like trying to deny her feelings and like stay away from it, but being so like enraptured with this other girl. And I think Eleanor would just live for that kind of romantic drama. We all know she loves the drama. She is a theater kid at heart. I think she would like the setting. I think she would love the like tension of like not being able to be with your true love. I could definitely see her being way too into this book. So very Eleanor Wong approved. And finally, for our main girl, our lovely disaster child, Devi Vishwakumar, I'm recommending Fat Chance Charlie Vega by Crystal Maldonado. This is a coming-of-age book about a fat brown girl in Connecticut who is just really struggling to love herself. She feels that she is like too many things. She's too fat, she's too brown. How could anyone ever love her? And I think Devi feels a lot of those things too. She's too nerdy. Again, like she's too Indian. She's, as Ben calls them, she's part of the like unfuckable nerds. And so I think she would really relate to Charlie Vega's struggle to accept herself and love herself and not be seen as too much. And then Charlie in the book starts to be interested in a classmate who's interested in her, only to find out that he had previously asked out her like super cute, skinny white friend first, and that Charlie feels kind of like a second choice. And so she has to reconcile with those kind of feelings of comparison and not being good enough. And I just think Devi would really relate to the comparison she's always doing and always feeling like, you know, too loud, too dramatic, too not white. And she would just really relate to these like coming of age struggles that Charlie Vega goes through. So for that reason, I think she would be a little devastated by the book, but then it has a happy ending. So I think she would come through the other side and really love it. So those are all of my official recommendations. I do have a couple of honorable mentions of ones that I almost recommended but ended up choosing another book. So for Mr. Shapiro, I have They Called Us Enemy by George Takei. It is another graphic novel written by George Takei, and it's about his experience of being in the Japanese internment camps during the Second World War. I almost chose this one because there is a part in Never Have I Ever where Paxton brings his grandpa in to talk about the Japanese internment camps, and Mr. Shapiro really enjoyed that, and it's a part of history that is not talked about a lot, so I think he would also enjoy this book. I just thought, because we'd already had that with Paxton's grandpa, it'd be maybe a little too on the nose at times, so I went with Mouse instead. But he would also, I think, make all the children read this book. Another honorable mention for Dr. Ryan is Little in Line by Brandy Colbert, which follows a girl whose stepbrother has bipolar disorder, and both of them are starting to fall in love with the same girl. So it's them kind of both falling for this girl, being in competition with each other, but then also the main character Suzette is like the emotional support for her stepbrother, and that is really like weighing on her, and it's really tough. So I think Dr. Ryan would maybe also recommend this to patients who have potentially have loved ones who are having mental health issues, because the kind of idea here is that like you can't be everything for one person, you cannot be responsible for someone else's mental health all the time, and like the toll that kind of takes on you. So I think for people who are adjacent family members of the people who are seeing her, I think she might recommend this book for them. For Paxton, I almost recommended the Check Please book because I think he might relate to Jack's story, being a top athlete and then having that taken away from you. In Paxton, it was like the injury. With Jack, it was mental health and addiction. But Jack ends up coming back to Samwell and being captain of the hockey team there. So he has that going for him, whereas Paxton pivots and does something else. He becomes a coach for the swim team and then goes and is a teacher. But I thought he would maybe relate to Jack's story a little bit. It just wasn't quite as close as I wanted, so I ended up going a different way, but I think he would still like this. And then the final honorable mention I have is for Fabiola, and that is the collection called The Secret Loves of Geek Girls, edited by Hope Nicholson. This is an anthology of non-fiction stories and comics and illustrations about the stuff that geek girls love. I thought Fabiola would relate to that, and it talks about being part of a fandom, but also being a creator of something that people love. So I thought Fabiola would relate to that because she's a little geek girl, but she's not so much in the fandom sphere as she is in the robotics nerdy stuff. So I ended up going with Murderbot instead. So that's it for the honorable mentions. I had a lot of fun thinking about how these characters would react to the different books. Let me know which ones you thought were right on, which ones you would maybe change, or if you have other books you'd recommend to the characters. I'd love to hear your ideas as well. Thank you so much for watching this video. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I hope to see you next time. Now go read a book. Apparently today's a cross-legged day. I keep sitting cross-legged and I don't know why. I obviously just picked the real kind of main characters. Oops. Do you want to help me recommend books? What do you think? I mean, her parents have dead. Oh, this is a lot of books. I'm so weak.